Normally you try to break out of the cage, but today I'm putting my camera in one. I wanted to make a video about some recent upgrades I've been making to my camera video setup, and yeah, so I'm gonna talk through that. Basically, the camera is an A7 III. That's the photo camera we've been using for a while. Probably be upgrading to the A7S III or maybe the A7 IV if it comes out. So as we started to shoot a little more video, wanted to add on some things to make it easier. So I'm gonna run through quickly what we have here, and then I'll go into a little more detail. So I added a half cage to mount things to. Then I mounted a top handle to a NATO rail with a monitor mount. This is the monitor, the Atomos Shinobi, which is basically a Ninja 5 without the recorder. There's a shotgun mic mount here on the side, a side handle, an HDMI clamp so the HDMI cable doesn't get bent or broken, and a camera plate here on the bottom. In addition, the camera strap here from Peak Design. So let's go into a little more detail, but before that, I want to introduce myself. My name is Mark Bergering. I'm a filmmaker and photographer, and I make content about camera gear, adventure, and creativity. And if that's something you're into, it really boosts my ego if you hit subscribe. So I started off as a professional photographer about 10 years ago, and 7 years ago, I went full-time, and since then, we've been primarily shooting photos. But over the years, we get more and more requests to shoot video and photo, and as we shoot more and more commercial work, we've gotten requests specifically just for video. And so recently, I've been trying to improve my setup to make our workflow a little smoother and just make things easier in general. Years ago, I played with the 5D Mark II and tried to shoot photo and video at the same time, but there's just two different mindsets for shooting video and shooting photo. So it's really hard to do both. And there's also some barriers where you've got different settings for photo and different settings for video that are ideal. And the two are just really challenging. And so my goal was to make things as easy as possible to switch back and forth and just make sure my setup was as streamlined as possible. When buying gear, my philosophy is always that equipment has to have an ROI, a return on investment. So I'm not gonna just buy something because I think it's awesome. I think it has to serve a purpose, and it has to be able to level up your quality or in some way have a return. So get paying clients that you couldn't access before because you didn't have the right equipment, or somehow increase your production value so that you can charge more money. So we had an upcoming shoot, and I really wanted to, I knew that we were gonna be shooting photo and video, and I wanted to have the best setup that I could and make things as efficient and high quality as possible. So I made a few upgrades, and I'm gonna run through those now. So as I mentioned before, the base of this setup is the Sony A7 III. Now this isn't the best camera out for video, but I think it's one of the best values out there in terms of photo cameras. And it also happens to shoot pretty good quality video. It shoots 4K, 120 frames in HD, but in general, it's doing the job for us right now. I think when the Sony A7 IV comes out, probably be upgrading to that, or if it doesn't come out for a while, maybe the A7S III. So on top of that, I've mounted a half cage. I went with the half cage because it's a little bit less obtrusive for shooting photos, and it's a little bit lighter weight, and it was able to have the capacity to hold all the things I wanted without extra weight. Now, the reason I got a cage for the camera is because I wanted to mount both a microphone and a monitor. And when you take the hot shoe and you put the mic there, you don't have a place to put the monitor. So that kind of brought in the cage idea. And it also allowed me to have a little bit more flexibility in terms of mounting other things. So the monitor, I got the Atomos Shinobi. It's basically a Ninja 5 without the recording capability, because the A7 III records internally, and there's not much advantage to recording externally. Because of that, the Atomos Shinobi was a little bit cheaper than the Ninja 5, and it allows me to do a few things that really kind of make my workflow a little bit smoother. Having a monitor allows you to have a much larger screen than this back screen here. It's a lot brighter and easier to see in sunny conditions, and you can load LUTs or lookup tables into this, which is basically a file that allows you to shoot in a log or RAW style profile for video. And then you can output that into your monitor and apply a correction utility LUT on the monitor so that you can easily, properly expose your image. And I loaded that on here, so I'll shoot in HLG3, the picture profile with a gamma set to HLG3. I think it's picture profile 5 on the A7 III. That outputs to the monitor, and then the monitor automatically corrects that to the Rec 709 color space. So basically it just makes it look like you're not shooting an HLG3, which will look really washed out and it's hard to gauge your exposure. It'll look like a normal corrected profile. Additionally, the monitor allows you to use zebras, which tells you when you're overexposed, and it has a really nice focus peaking function. So you can see what's in focus all the time, and it's just so much easier than looking at the back screen of the camera. It also has the flexibility to rotate depending on what angle you're shooting at. Like if you're shooting a low shot, it's nice to fold the monitor, and it's just a lot more flexible. After mounting the monitor, you need an HDMI cable going to your camera, and that's another reason I got the cage, is because it allows you to use an HDMI clamp, which basically the Sony A7 cameras, some of them have a mini HDMI port, which is very susceptible to getting broken or snapped off when this cable gets bumped. But with this HDMI clamp that's bolted onto the side of this cage, and you tighten this down, it keeps it really sturdy and you can't really move this around, and it protects that HDMI port. Next up, I added this side handle here. So I wanted a side handle because if you have a wider grip, it allows you to have better control over the camera and get more stable footage. So I experimented with a couple different options, ended up with this wood one, and I like it because it's mounted with this on the NATO rail on the side here, and you can quickly take it off and put it back on with just the turn of a knob. So it's really modular and easy to take off if you want to pack it away in your bag, or you want to go lighter and not have this on the side. The next thing is the top handle here. So I experimented with a couple different options, ended up going with something that was also mounted on a NATO rail so that it could be quickly, if I turn it the right direction here, so it could be quickly taken off. That allows me to kind of disassemble and make my camera a little more compact, or if I'm just shooting photos, I can take this off, you know, just unplug the HDMI cable, take this off, and quickly put it back on. You'll notice that it's mounted on a NATO rail, which is screwed to the top of the cage here. I experimented with a couple different top handles. One of them was just bolted directly to the cage, but I found that it was a little bit too close to the shotgun mic and just didn't have enough room for me to grab the top handle. The top handle is also adjustable this way, and one little thing that I like is that it always has a wrench here. So that's super handy for tightening down your monitor or for attaching camera plates like the Peak Design plates that I keep here on the bottom. Just this Allen wrench magnetic there, really nice to have for adjusting all of these bolts. The last thing here on the list is the shotgun mic. This is the Deity V-Mic D3 Pro, and it fits pretty nicely tucked in right here next to the side handle, and just gives you that onboard audio plugged into the mic port here on the side. For ambient sounds, you know, if you're doing any kind of interview, you're gonna wanna have a lav mic, but shotgun mic is good for just capturing kind of those ambient sounds that you get in the background. It also can work as a backup audio in case your other audio source fails, and it works well if you're trying to sync up audio later. You've got at least a decent audio source to start from in order to sync in Premiere. The last thing I wanted to mention was the Peak Design strap that I keep on here. The little quick release mounts here on the cage and here on this side. I like this strap because it's adjustable and it allows you to put it around your neck, hold this at a variety of angles, and it gives you, with the side handle here, the grip here, and 2 other points of contact around your neck, you can really stabilize the footage and get really smooth handheld footage. So for having this rig put together for about a month now and having taken it out on shoots, I am pretty happy with it. It's working pretty well. When I kind of thought it out and put it together, my priorities were a modular system that could be somewhat disassembled in case I wanted to go lighter weight and say skip the monitor or skip the onboard mic and top handle, and have it be a little bit more compatible in terms of photo mode when I'm strictly shooting photos. And also I need to be able to take it with me skiing, ice climbing, basically outdoors in somewhat challenging environments, and have it be durable and ready to go at a moment's notice. So when you're putting together and making decisions for a camera setup similar to this, you just want to consider, what are your top priorities? Is it lightweight? Is it compact? Maybe that's not a concern. Maybe your tripod is where your camera lives all the time. And in that case, you might go with a bigger setup or have a little bit, different arrangement. I think it's important to just realize what's the intent and optimize it for that setup. But the bottom line is, I think a cage is a really effective tool in order to give your camera a little bit more capability in terms of video and the experience of getting stable footage and functional, easy to use, correctly exposed footage. So initially I wasn't a big fan of camera cages, but after experimenting with this, I've really come to like it. And I think that future cameras that I buy, I will be building out a small cage for them. Thanks so much for watching. I will link all of the components I used here in the description below. And if you have any questions or you're unsure of what to get and how it will fit together, hit me up in the comments, and look forward to helping you out. Thanks so much. Okay, I'm doing the why you should get a camera cage.